Right on, writers, and welcome back to the Books by Adrian author platform. This is Tuber Book Club, where we read and discuss books written by author tubers. We have read and discussed the very awesome Falling Through by Ben Pick, and today's episode is going to be all about interviewing this excellent author about this excellent book that he has written. For those of you joining us for the first time, like, comment, subscribe, all that good stuff. And stick around to the end of the show because we'll be announcing the winner of the poll for our next Tuber Book Club read. I am not going to waste any time. I'm going to get first my illustrious panel of co-hosts out here, and then we will welcome our guest of honor. First and foremost, with the brightest hair in the room, Miss SD Houston. Hello.
Hello, how are you doing?
I am well. How are you?
Good. Ready to talk about Ben's awesome book.
It is indeed very awesome and worth talking about. I'm excited about it.
Yes.
Tell the folks at home who you are, where you're from, what do you got going on.
All right. Hello, everyone. My name is Shannon. I write under the pen name of SD Houston, and I am the author of the YA fantasy trilogy, Clash of Goddesses, now working on a romantic fantasy series, which I hope will come out next year. And on my channel, you can find content about writing and my self-publishing journey, which is under the same name of SD Houston, by the way. And I'm 1/3 of the Self-Publishing Tips and Tricks podcast with our author, Ben Pick, from Running to Write, and Morgan Lee, and 1/2 of the duo for the AuthorTube Writing Conference. And I'm also the organizer of the Secret Santa for 2022. So if you want to sign up, sign-ups are now open, and they close at the end of the month.
I was just saying you are busy, very busy, and I don't know how you do it. Next up, the omnipresent Richard Holliday. Hello. Ricardito, tell everybody at home who you are, where you're from, what you got going on. And you're muted, by the way. You're muted. There you go.
Oh, sorry. I did an Adrian and muted myself.
You pulled an Adrian, you did, yeah.
I pulled an Adrian. Well, I'm Richard. I'm the author of Nightmare Tenant and other exciting books, allegedly, that are coming out soon, maybe next year, who knows, we'll wait and see. To find out more about them, you know what to do. I'm going to hold up the plastic, subscribe, and I am delighted. I am brimming with enthusiasm to talk about this all right book. Thank you.
This all right book is just all right.
I think we were waiting for more to follow.
I know, right? I was like, he's done already?
Well,
all right. Well, let's not waste any more time and bring him on out here. The man of the hour himself, Mr. Ben Pick.
Hello.
Howdy, Broham. How are you?
I am doing excellent today. Thank you.
We're happy to have you. For the few at home who do not know you, tell them who you are, where you're from, and what you're currently working on.
I am Ben Pick. I have an AuthorTube channel called Running to Write, which puts out content every Monday night, 7 p.m. Eastern Time. That is questionable writing advice through running metaphors. I forgot my own tagline. I'm very bad. I've also written this book, the sequel of which is currently in the editing process, and I'm going to do cover reveals and all types of fun stuff with that. Ideally, I'd like to get it out in the first, maybe second week of December. We'll see how close I can get to that target. I am also, as Shannon mentioned, 1/3 of the Self-Publishing Tips and Tricks podcast, along with Shannon, SD Houston, and Morgan Lee. I'm doing the scripting the book with Nia the Vixen of Fiction, Natalie Locke, and Morgan Lee, and rotating hosts as well. It's usually 4 people, possibly 5. Our next scripting the book is October 30th, and we'll be doing Coraline, which will be a lot of fun. And coming up soon, I will be hosting one of the worldwide write-a-thon sessions, the Productivity Sprint. So if you are around on October 22nd, at 3 a.m. to 5:30 a.m. relative to Eastern Time. So hopefully maybe some of you UK, Richard, you might be there. I'm going to be doing a productivity sprint so you can see how well I can write while I am mentally and physically exhausted.
I'm just going to say now,
That's
I'm
fun.
not going to be there. I'm not going to be there.
Oh, come on. That's like 8 o'clock your time, man. That's great.
It's 8 o'clock on a Saturday, which doesn't exist. We shall see. We shall see. If I can be persuaded to rise that early, we shall see.
Well, you can always catch it on the replay. So there's that.
Let's face it, no one does that.
There's that. Ben, I'm very curious about that box over your left shoulder with what looks like, with
Mr.
like trees. Yeah, what is that? What's going on in there?
This was made by Mr. Blandis. It is I guess diorama is what it's called. He's got his book in here, and it's like a fantasy setting from that was influenced by one of his stories. So if I turn off all the lights, I can't obviously because I'm sitting down and everything's set up. But there's a light that comes on. It looks really good in the dark. That's supposed to be a portal in the background.
Wow.
Nice.
So my first question, Ben, is when are you getting the falling through version of that made?
I was just gonna say, now I got to make one of these for my book when it comes out. That looks dope, man.
And Mr. Blandis has a YouTube channel, and he shows a lot of the stuff that he makes. It's really awesome.
Mm-hmm.
He's very
He actually showed the making of this one or one just like it, so it was really cool to see. And he's working on a witch's tower, I think, in his recent one.
He gave one of his creations to the AWC, and it was one of the prizes that went to one of the winners.
Mm-hmm. Cool. All right, I'm learning about a new person here. I've never heard of this dude. I'm gonna check him out. Right on. Ben Pick, I'm going to go ahead and throw out my first question at you, which is the the influences for your stories. Where do you get your influences for your stories in general? Because we were all talking about the vibes that we were getting out of this book, everything from comic books and superheroes to I'm starting to pick up in retrospect some Stranger Things vibes and stuff like that. Where did you get sort of your inspiration for the stories?
Yeah, it's funny you should mention that. Well, first and foremost, I want to thank you. I didn't get a chance to do this one during my intro, but I want to thank you and Shannon and Richard for all of your critiques and praises and criticisms from the past 2 episodes. I know I talked to each of you about it, but some of you were concerned that some of the things you said might have come off as a little harsh. None of it did. It was all extremely useful, and I was able to turn around 2 new versions of the book with just really minor tweaks. So I want to just thank all of you. And so from here on out, I actually now have, if I'm feeling down, 2 videos I can watch to just bring myself up into a better mood, because you all were almost completely praising this story. And like I said, the criticisms were completely valid. As far
it was good.
Yeah. As far as influences, there's this guy right here. Chrono Trigger was a huge one of me. That's a time-traveling video game, one of my favorites. It's funny that you should mention Stranger Things, because there is certainly some influences in there, but a lot of my stories, a lot of the ideas sort of predate Stranger Things, because this has been in the making for at least 10 years. Although you wouldn't think that, because in the sequel, there's going to be a fun mall scene, which my editor actually commented is just like a scene in Stranger Things. So it's more, so it's funny how our influences kind of work out. And a lot of the events were strongly influenced by events in my real life. There's, the car crash that actually happened. I just threw a little paranormal sense into there.
Are you saying you didn't actually use telekinesis to crash your car?
It wasn't my car, but yes. Yeah. One of my friends. Well, I toned down a lot of the jerkiness of these characters, because one of my friends, he flipped his car and I went out to pick him up. He actually called his parents and used the phrase, "Remember how I used to have a car?" So yeah, there's that. There have been a few parties that I was at that have been busted by the cops, and so everybody sort of just sprints and runs out and tries to...
Now we're getting into the dirt.
Yeah,
right.
Get into it. Yeah.
So Ben, how many times have you been arrested for underage drinking?
None. You don't get arrested for underage drinking.
You get arrested for other things?
Citation. You
So
get
what
citation.
else? So hang on. What did
You
you
know
get
the
arrested for?
process.
Yeah, you have to be less
I haven't gotten
specific.
arrested. I run fast. That's where that whole running thing comes from. No. In all seriousness, I've lived a very tame life. But
Find that hard to
Richard,
believe.
why did you do this? This is uncalled for, Richard. Uncalled for. I'm just now looking through the chat for the first time. That's why I'm throwing them all up. You guys are nuts. I love it.
yeah, and so in addition to that, as far as stories are concerned, I have my obvious Lord of the Rings, which as much as Richard hates it, I'm a huge fan. You have the Raymond Feist Midikimia series, which is quite literally a portal fantasy where it's basically Lord of the Rings, but with dimension hopping and all types of other sword and sorcery stuff, which is really fun.
That sounds much better.
Yeah. Oh yeah, thank you, and please subscribe to my newsletter if you want. If that's the right link, then you'll be.
It's the one
tagged
from the
correct.
bottom of your latest video. So.
And yes, that's the correct one, and you'll get the first 2 chapters of my next book sent in there.
Are you ready for a question from me?
Yes, let's do it.
Hit
Okay. When did you decide at what point that Ben should be called Derek?
That wins question of the day.
Wasn't that obvious? No.
Well, we kept making that mistake.
know.
Yeah.
It's not Ben. It's not
Is
Ben.
this autobiographical?
More than I like to admit. Honestly, about version 3. So there was a point at which where this was all told in first person, and then I switched it over to third person, and I went from Ben to Derek. And the funny thing is that when I first started writing this, I was this young, optimistic kid, and I felt a lot like Derek. And then as the series went on, I felt more like a different character who's a lot more jaded and a lot more strict with their responsibilities, because I don't want to say which character that is, because that is kind of more in spoiler territory, but I feel like I could really, when I first started writing this story, I felt like the hero of my own story, but now I feel like I could easily be
The villain.
the villain in my own story. So
Creepy. Shannon bringing the questions.
but yeah, anytime I didn't know, or anytime I wanted to expand on the setting or the details, I just threw something in from my real life. So I wanted to make something feel more real. I just put in direct inserts from my day-to-day.
So what you're saying is, if we read this carefully enough, we can find out where you actually live.
You can find where I used to live.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm like that where I'll put stuff from my real life into the stories, but there was a character that, not that I should have named after me, because he's not necessarily exactly like me, but he's kind of like what I wish I was. So I was tempted to do that, and then I remembered one of my favorite bands, Coheed and Cambria. They have these concept albums, and they're telling this gigantic, like, epic sci-fi story across all of their albums. And early on, the main character was named Claudio, which is the lead singer's name. And in every interview that they ask him about that, he always expressed his regret in naming a character after himself and not coming up with an original name. So I decided to stay away from that. So, but it sounds like you could have very easily gone with Ben for this particular character.
And indeed,
Yes and
we
no.
did slip into that.
We did anyway, yeah.
In some ways, yes. In other ways, I changed the book completely from those earlier versions, so it doesn't really fit as well as it used to.
It does a little. How many years did you work on the storyline, and what prompted you to self-publish versus the traditional pub?
I started working on this in 2005.
You were in college.
Yeah, high school. So
Okay.
my senior year in high school, I think that's about 2005. So that sounds right. So I started working on this, and I was this bright, optimistic kid, like I mentioned, and I actually told my brother, I'm like, I'll finish writing this book in the first semester, and then I'll keep writing through the series, and it'll just go so quickly. And then, more than 10 years later, I'm finally getting around to publishing the first book. So it is kind of a glacial pace, but I really wanted to get it right. The earlier versions of this were not very good.
We'll be the judge of that.
And we actually talked about this a little bit in our last self-publishing tips and tricks interview with Christy Stratos.
Mm-hmm.
I remember you saying that you had plans to have it done before college.
Yeah. Those plans didn't work, but I didn't really know anything about writing. I just sort of had a story that I wanted to tell, and I did my best to tell it as well as I could, and that just kept going and going and going. It didn't really have any good story beats. It didn't really have good pacing. It was just event after event after event. And so cutting that down, figuring it out, and breaking the story down to its fundamentals was really essential to get to where it is. And as far as traditional versus self-publishing, I've been sitting on this for so long that I really just wanted to get out there. I did one cycle of querying for it, but this book is very difficult to market for a variety of reasons. The main one being that it's basically just a superhero story, and it's hard to put into a specific category. I mean, even urban fantasy didn't really feel like it fit. That's just kind of a broad umbrella that I use for everything.
Yeah, it's hard to like nail down whether it's sci-fi or fantasy or, you know, as you said, superheroes. Like it kind of blends all these together. Yeah,
kind of straddles those genres, which I think is really good because you've written what you wanted to write, not necessarily what fits in a particular kind of category. So yeah, my kind of observation is that this is definitely an impressive thing. Do you think that the long gestational period means it's more a product of your writing ability now or your writing ability in 2005?
Oh, definitely now. From after I graduated, there was like a 6 month. There were multiple 6 month periods where I completely rewrote it. So this book basically shares the heart of what I originally started with, but almost every other detail is completely different.
Mm-hmm.
Short of like the fundamentals of them going through time and fighting the monster.
Yeah, I'm glad that you went with the self-pub because, like you said, you worked on it for so long that to then try to get it traditionally published would have probably taken you another 5 years minimum. You know what I mean? Like, there's so many authors that just get stuck in that grind of trying to get it traditionally published. It's nice that you just kind of put it out there, especially for a debut. You know, you want to release it your way, try to find your audience, build it organically, naturally. It's nice. It's nice.
Yeah. Thank you.
All right.
My question leading on from that
hit it.
is not necessarily about this particular book, but it's about your kind of writing career going forwards. Are you potentially going to look at being a hybrid author in the future, or are you just going to go down one particular path?
I'm not opposed to being hybrid. As it stands, I'm probably just going to keep self-publishing. I don't really think I'm going to... Now that I've exited the query cycle, I think I'm just going to stick with self-publishing until somebody comes and finds me, which isn't going to happen. So I think by de facto, I'm just going to kind of be...
It is possible. I mean, I wouldn't close the door, because if you look at The Martian by Andy Weir, that started as a self-published book, then it became a film with Matt Damon, which was actually quite good.
I'm certainly not opposed to it. I think it would be weird if Matt Damon played Derek, but that's fine.
Okay, who would play Derek in the movie adaptation of this book?
Adrian
or adaptation?
I don't know any like high school kid actors, so I don't know. Tom Holland maybe, but that would have to be like right now.
Yeah.
Did you say Adrian Brody?
Tom Holland's almost 30. Yeah,
I know.
You would probably be looking at the cast of Stranger Things. Honestly, you just grab the kids out of there and throw them right into this.
Yep.
They'd probably be right around the right age at this point. Biggest lesson learned from book 1 that will influence book 2.
Have a good outline and good story beat that you're following from the beginning. Book 1 was largely pantsed, and then I went back and tried to... I had the story written, or I had one version of the story written, and then I went back and tried to outline and try to fix it from there. But I had all these different disconnected pieces that were difficult to sort of meld together. Book 2, I had a solid idea, I had a solid plan, and I just sort of followed through with it.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Did you follow through, or did you falling through with it?
Well done.
You're welcome.
Is it well done? Don't encourage him. All right. What is the part you regret most taking out? What are you happiest that you added?
I want to know
So
whether
here's
there was a hidden romance plot that's been taken out of this. That is sitting in your files somewhere.
Kind of, but again, those Maggie, as far as things I regret taking out, honestly, everything that was significant that I took out got added back into books 2 and 3. So there was this. You in your previous episodes, you were commenting how there were a lot of these like training montages that I skipped over, or there were a lot of scenes that felt like they were missing, or a lot of things like, "Hey, we'll train tomorrow," and then we skip ahead a few days. Well, those scenes were written. And there's one in particular that I loved, but it's not going to get in there until book 3. It was originally an underground training session, but I completely repurposed it for a different motive. And so now you have two characters who are deep underwater and going deeper and deeper and deeper. And it's basically just a fun scuba diving scene. So I really enjoyed writing it the first time. I wrote that after like one of the first times I went diving. And it didn't fit in book 1 anymore, so I took it out and added it to book 2. As far as the love romance story plot, that was very forced in the earlier versions of the story. And now those characters, I don't even know if the love interest is in the series anymore from the earlier versions, but there will be some more romance in books 2 and to a lesser extent book 3. So you do have that to look forward to if you continue with the series. There are going to be some lovely teenage romance dramas.
I was going to say I can't wait to buy it just for that, but that sounds a little bit weird at my age.
Well, I think my biggest takeaway from that is that we can expect training montages in book 3.
Or in book 2.
Or worse than training montages. ...
It's my 50 Shades of Grey spin-off I threw into Falling Through.
50 Shades of Training.
Yeah.
Falling through the gray.
Nice. Yeah. Shannon, your next question.
All right. How did you come up with all of your chapter titles?
I don't
And
have
why?
a good answer for that.
And why did you need to come up with so many chapter titles?
I just started having fun. Like those start off as notes to myself of what's going to happen in the chapter. And then a couple of them I started thinking like, wow, that's really, really good. And I like if somebody opens this book up and they look through it, they're like, what is Lockwood? Or like Lockud, which was one of the random things. And that makes sense once you read the chapter, but looking at just a list of these names, it doesn't make any sense. Or the flint that will strike the world and turn to ash. Like those are just interesting hints of what's to come, and until you get to those points in the story, they don't really make much sense. You don't really have the context for it. But I just thought it's a fun way to tease what's coming.
RC Scott, I'm with you, bro. I'm with you. Too many boxes.
Yeah. Titles are hard.
They are. And I'm definitely regretting that choice in book 3.
I love coming up with titles for the book and everything. Like it's usually where I start, to be honest, is I come up with the title first and the story follows. But that many titles, coming up with a title for every chapter, I'm like, no thanks.
It's impressive, but I couldn't do that.
Yeah, it is.
So my question.
But I like hearing. Sorry, yeah, I like hearing that it started with like descriptions, ideas of what's in the it's all like it's almost like part of your outline. I feel like it's a little glimpse into your writing process. That's nice. I like that.
Yeah.
Richard, what were you going to say?
My question, following on from the chapter title, which I thought was a really bold thing to do, because I see chapter titles, I think that's just like 38 more titles to think of. Oh, horrible. Was Falling Through always going to be the title of this book? If not, what was the working title / working titles plural?
I didn't have a good working title. It was just Into the Void book 1. So until I finished writing that, I've had this conversation with Adrian about how difficult it is for me to come up with titles. And Falling Through was a tough one, but then once it hit, it really stuck. And then I went back and changed a couple of the chapter titles to match with this book title. If you saw towards the end,
We did.
Are the last few.
We are observant.
Well, I'm trying to, for people who are watching this, I'm trying to not go through with too much of the spoilers, but there are 2 chapters that have Falling and then Through in them. And Yeah, I was really struggling to come up with a name. I was working through all kinds of different things. I don't even have the original list of what names I was sort of throwing at a dartboard, and falling through just landed, and then it stuck, and it made perfect sense because of the gratuitous number of times that these characters fall from really high heights.
My follow-up to that answer, which is very good, by the way, is that did you find that when the title finally kind of clicked, you kind of became even more kind of invested in the story and more enthusiastic about finishing it? Because that's happened to me before, but I want to know if you've had that experience too.
Yes and no. So the book was already finished. The manuscript was already finished by the time that I already finished the manuscript. Then I was trying to figure out what the title would be. And then I went back and I was really invigorated. Once I picked Falling Through, I was really invigorated to completely overhaul a couple of key climactic moments within the story to sort of coincide with the image shown on screen, on the book cover, the final conflict, like a bunch of different moments within the story. I really wanted to go back and tell those a little bit differently so that it feels more... I was inspired to go back and write them a little bit differently.
Tell me a little bit about the process of creating the book cover with Meeblart. How did that go for you? What kind of challenges arose in that process for you? What was that like?
So book one is really easy. I'm struggling with book two, and I don't know how we should really handle this because I plan on doing a video with you, Adrian, about this exact topic. But book one was relatively seamless. I mean, I largely had an idea of what I wanted. I told them, show a guy falling off a bridge towards a portal. There's a river underneath. If you look at the back, it's going to be really hard to see, but you can kind of see the marshland that's also over there. So there's a couple of sparse trees.
Ooh.
And I guess rocks. And you can just sort of barely see the
Richard
railing.
hadn't seen this yet. He hadn't taken a look at the back of the book yet.
Shut
amazed.
up, Adrian.
Look at him.
There are all kinds of spoilers, but I had this vague idea of what I wanted, and I gave them those basic descriptions, and they turned this out, and it was... Version 1 was almost identical to what I wanted. There were a couple of small tweaks. I think there were a couple of specific things about Derek who's falling, which I had mentioned about his physical descriptions. And so they just sort of tweaked it a little bit. But what you see here is almost identical to what the first draft was that they sent out to me. So it was very, very seamless.
Can I ask, when you opened that first kind of concept the first time, did you have the same feeling I had when my first concept came through, and it was like smiling ear to ear, thinking, "Oh my god!"
Oh yeah, especially
that's really cool. Even when you unboxed it, it was like...
I mean, I'd seen the picture multiple times, but to hold it in my hands, I was basically on the verge of tears. But this is just such a really cool thing to see somebody else create, because I had my own vision of what the scene would be. And yes, what I had in my head is different, but somebody took my words and they created art out of it. And yes, it doesn't perfectly align with the vision that I have in my head, but it looks incredible. And that's stunning. Like that, if there were to be fan art of the characters or the sayings in the book, like I can imagine how I would feel. And it's the same sort of thing with this cover.
It is a fantastic cover. It's probably one of the best covers I've seen since I've been on the self-publishing roadshow, as it were, for the last sort of couple of years. But it is a true credit, and I think it's going to do your book a lot of credit, because people will see this. Already I've shown it to people. They're like, ooh, with that exact reaction. Ooh. And yeah, you really hit the jackpot with that one. So well done.
I completely agree. And that's where the one thing that I'm struggling with Meeblart is currently, because they came out with a perfect cover for book 2. It looks really cool. It had what I asked them to do, but it was in a completely different style than this cover. So it would look like a completely different book in the series. So I'm trying to work with them to make it look a little bit different. So we'll see how well that goes over. But if book 2 were a standalone, Meeblart would have delivered in, again, like the first draft would have been really, really good. So I cannot praise them enough.
Yeah, that's been the challenge for me. I gotta say, with getting a cover design for my own book. I just, before starting this stream, sent out an email to Meeblart saying thanks, but I'm gonna pass.
Right.
I've been through 2 artists and now Meeblart, and I'm back to the drawing board because it's just not quite right. And not only does it have to be right for this book, but it has to set up the series and it has to flow with the next sequels. And there's a whole theme that I'm trying to get across, but I don't know, man. So we're definitely gonna, you and I, talk a lot about this process whenever we do the video on covers, because as much as you are expressing these like warm and fuzzies, I have had nothing but stress, and like I want to tear my hair out because the cover is so important, and
really
I can't quite seem to get it right. I want what you have, in the sense that people go ooh and pick it up and go, what is it, and they turn it over. Ooh, like that's what I'm looking for. I need people to the people scrolling on Amazon need to like stop and be like, what is that, and click on it. And it's just,
I completely agree, and I will admit that I 100% lucked out with this, but part of it was also that I didn't have a good idea of what I wanted. I gave character falling, portal, river. There's a bridge there that you can see. He's falling off of it. That was it. And they just, they turned this out. So that's shows that the artist was able to take not even a vision, just a couple of descriptions and turn it into something incredible. So I don't know how to work with the second one, where they're a lot more constrained, and I might, Meeblart might not work. The first artist, it wasn't a hit. They had their own vision, and it didn't match with what I wanted. So now there are some more constraints that it will be more difficult. And since you had such a clear vision of exactly what you wanted, I can easily understand how there would be different results.
Mm-hmm.
After going through the first 2 artists and them telling me that what I wanted wasn't doable, I went to Meeblart with much more of an open mind. I have to say, I went to them and told them what I need to convey with the cover, but I very much left it open to them to come up with their own concept. And hilariously enough, it was actually very close to what I actually wanted, but it brought up some new problems, some new challenges that I was like, you know what, I didn't think about this. I didn't think about what this is going to look like as a tiny thumbnail on Amazon, for example. When you have an image that's made up of a lot of different smaller images, that's going to get lost in the shuffle on there. I need it to be a big, as yours is, one big solid image that jumps out at you and grabs your eye. So like I said, back to the drawing board, but whatever. This is not about my book, it's about yours. Let's get to the next question. Do you have a series Bible that you refer back to, or do you just remember everything?
Absolutely not. I 100% have a series Bible. Not only that, but I have character breakdowns of everyone, and those character breakdowns are separated by book. So I know that you can use all types of different tools for this. I think Scrivener is one of the ones that everyone else uses, but I just have folders and folders with documents and documents, and it's a mess mentally. So I remember where I keep everything, and then I just cross-reference it, and I'll have notes of like, hey, here's where I put this specific thing, or for specific characters, I will have lines that I took out from the book of physical descriptions, and if they change, they change, but that is my starting point of like, hey, if you change this detail, you need to go back and change it everywhere else. So I definitely have a series Bible. I have an outline for each book. I have character descriptions, and I have where I want to go across the series all sort of drafted out. So yes, I have it very, very... I have a very robust system that no one besides me could actually understand.
My follow-up from that, Ben, if I mind jumping in, is that does this speak with your comprehensive notes that if you were run over by a bus tomorrow, someone, maybe someone on this panel, could pick up the series and continue it for you? Or would you rather your hard drive get squashed by a steamroller like Terry Pratchett did?
No, he would just fall through and go get it from the other bin.
You mean Derek, not Ben.
Well, you posed this question to Ben.
Yeah. So the other Ben. Yeah.
They're putting out a hit on me now.
What?
No, of course not. I would love for somebody else to carry this on. If if something horrible were to happen to me, I think it would be incredible to have somebody passionate enough about the story to want to carry it on. I don't think that if they did, I mean, I do have notes, but those notes frequently change as I write each of the individual books. So a lot of those moving targets are no longer applicable. The number of books in the series has both grown and shrunk as I've continued writing and as I've developed these plots. But I would, yes, please, more fan fiction. That would be awesome. But I would be incredibly impressed if somebody were to willingly carry on the torch that I've lit, even if something happens where I don't get to publish book 2 on. Like, I think that would be incredible to have somebody just want to carry the story to where it's concluding.
Yeah, see where it goes for sure. Miss Shannon, do you have another question for Mr. Ben Pick?
I've got a lot of them, and as I mentioned, some of this I don't know if you'll answer because it might be spoilers for next books. But I'm curious about Mr. Marshall's missing arm. Is that just like something you want to have a character with like that disability, or is that like something like special about him?
Both. I did want to have him be a little bit more remarkable, and I think that it shows that he's experienced. Because well, I mean, they never really asked him if it's a birth defect or something along those lines, but they come up with their own kinds of stories, and that one shows that the kids have a wild imagination as is, and 2, it could indicate that maybe something did happen in the past, and whether or not that's relevant, you just have to keep reading to find out.
That means
That's what I figured.
So basically, yes.
So I will say this: there's a lot of, between the 3 of you, you hit on a lot of the very, very minute details that I put down, and a couple of your predictions were really spot on. So it's impressive how well you know me and how well you know the writing style and where you think the story is going. Now, there are also some predictions that you made that were wildly off, but
good.
It's fun to just see what you think is going to happen. So
yeah. That's part of the most fun aspects of being a writer and putting your stuff out there, is getting people to like come up with theories about where it's all going, and you knowing where it's going, and you're just like, I don't know.
It's
it's
when
fun.
people get that invested in your book that they start to speculate wildly about what's going to happen. That's a really nice feeling, both as a reader, because we're kind of getting invested in this book, and we're thinking, oh, what could happen next? And it's nice for you to, as the author, to bask in our collective glow.
Right. And I will say already that one of the things I thought I was so clever for including, it's this minor detail for what will be a major spoiler. Looking at it now, it's just dumb. So I don't think anybody is ever going to get that hint that I dropped down, but
I kind of want to go back and rewatch our coverage now and see if I can figure out, like, okay, so what did we get right and what are we way off on? Like,
it might not even be something that you specifically predicted would happen or was relevant. It might just be like an off comment that you meant, and me knowing what that comment actually means, think, well, I went back and I was like, well, that is really smart, but it's kind of too smart, and it's crossed over the point of being really, really dumb.
Ben, you're not supposed to insult the panelist, i.e. me.
No, I'm insulting myself because I thought it was a really good idea, and now I'm like, that's a really dumb idea. I should have just, whatever.
What was the most valuable tip you learned from TNT Podcast?
The Self-Publishing Tips and Tricks podcast. That would have to be marketing. I mean, yes, it is wonderful to find a good match with an editor. I actually am working with one of the editors who is on our show. She's about to finish with a version of book 2. But the most valuable thing that I've learned is just how to market myself better. And that is something which I need to work on considerably. And it's something which every single one of the people who come on that we interview, they tell us that it's, something really difficult to market ourselves and to continually put ourselves out there. And that's something which I need to get better at. And through their advice, I feel like I'm slowly getting there.
Along those same lines, sales wise, Expectations versus reality. Give us the lowdown. How did that pan out?
Can you retire yet?
I will say thus far, I am incredibly impressed. But that being said, Ingram Spark is really, really bad with showing me how many books I've sold. So I can see the number of paper books sold, but there is a massive delay with the ebooks, and I can't even break it down by like when they were actually sold. So I'm just now starting to get sales data for ebooks, and it says that it's September sales, but I'm almost positive that it's actually August sales that are just now being tracked, because I find it suspicious that I have 0 sales in August, and now that we're in October, it's starting to record as September sales. So there's just a big mess. That being said, my paperback sales were over 100 in the first week, and that was amazing to me. Like, that was my goal for a month easily. And yes, I do appreciate that that all of us have our own copies that we are,
I have a digital copy. Everyone, relax.
I don't fault you for that, Adrian. I am out of room in my house, so all my copies.
I paid $3 for my digital copy. Thank you very much.
I appreciate that. 99 cents, so you did miss out, but
I'm happy to pay the $3, man. It was well.
My question to you, Ben, if I mind jumping in yet again, I'm sorry to shut up, is would you use Ingram Spark again? Because I think there was some pluses and minuses, especially with dealing with Amazon. Are we allowed to mention Amazon, by the way? Boo, hiss, boo, hiss.
That is an upcoming video. I'm going to go into great detail and Ingram Spark and like how to use it and all my thoughts on it, but
spill the tea.
I would say it's a known bad. Like, there's this is going to sound really bad, but there's this haircuttery that I used to go to after I moved, and I went there because I went to some other places and just had really bad experiences, but like with them, they did a mostly good enough job. I could go back home and like trim up a couple of the mistakes that they made, and I could fix it on my own and do like a couple of really, really small tweaks. But overall, I kept going back to there. It was about a half hour to drive back to my old place where the haircuttery was. And for a while, I kept going back there because they were a known evil. Like, I knew that they did a passable job. Yeah, I knew what I would get. And I would say it's the same thing with Ingram Spark. I find their tools to be real easy to use. And hopefully I'll get better at using them. Hopefully I'll get better understanding for their metrics and for their sales reports and for all that information. But for right now, it's what I know. And so moving from book 1, I don't feel like I've learned enough about them to really justify switching. So with book 2, I feel like I'm going to improve on my own processes. And then by book 3, I really feel like I can make that decision on whether or not I want to keep using them.
That was a fantastic answer. Also, I did ask the question in the chat, who cuts your hair now?
I got a local place that's a block away from me, so. Well, it's really weird because I got like this widow's peak and nobody knows how to cut it. And I went to this one place where the woman actually like looked away and then cut it. And of course it went like diagonal.
Never cut the widow's peak. It's a sign
Not
of
a problem
character.
for me for much
Leave
longer.
it in there.
My husband cuts his widow's peak because he says it looks too feminine to him.
No, I don't have a problem with it.
Yeah, I don't know why.
What?
I have this sticky outy bit, which is driving me nuts, but it's what it is.
That's a first, Shannon. I need to talk to him and see what's going on in his brain. Never
Yeah,
heard
so
that
what
one.
we need to do.
The problem
We
isn't
need
the
to
widow's
send
peak. The
Shannon-
problem is that my hair is really curly. And so I have like a widow's peak and it's curly. And so they try and like cut it straight across. But then my hair is like goes back to its normal state and it looks a mess. So,
Do you get the whole like bowl haircut where it's like someone's put a bowl on your head and trimmed it off?
No, I don't.
I haven't had that since I was 6. Thank God.
Yeah. The 90s were a rough time, man.
Shannon, your next question for Ben Pick.
Will the other books in the series have other viewpoints that we were not in already? Like Rachel?
Absolutely.
Okay.
That is something that I really am excited about, is that book 1 focused on Derek, and then to a lesser extent there was Tracy and Flint. Book 2 starts off, there's a prologue. Book 2 really starts off with Rachel. So I'm excited to show her mindset, show how her powers work from her point of view, because from everything else we've seen it from somebody else. And I think that I'm really excited to tell the story from different point of views. So yes, there will still be Derek. Yes, there will still be Tracy, but I try to keep it to 3. and I try to rotate who those narrators are.
Nice.
I think that's really good.
What format would you like next? Light novel, anime, screenplay to movie, screenplay to Netflix series?
My question is, what's a light novel?
Graphic novel.
This is fairly heavy.
Yeah. I mean, it would be cool to see this on Netflix, but I think an anime would actually do it the most accurate reflection. Yeah, the most justice. There's a lot of things in here which I don't think would necessarily do well in a live action film, but you could get away with that in a cartoon, in anime, in manga, whatever you want.
I'm particularly thinking about the polar bear monster. That's that would work best, I think, in animated formats.
Yeah.
Right.
I actually think this story works its best in prose form, because I always kind of feel that, you can have a film or a TV show or a cartoon, but the best kind of like, the best kind of like is the mind's eye is actually better than any special effects department. So I think you can paint a picture with words that you maybe cannot do on screen. I read that and it wasn't that bad, but Jurassic Park was a lot better.
Oh yeah, you like Michael Crichton, that's fine.
Love Michael Crichton. Good stuff.
My question then is, which Michael Crichton was a big influence on this book?
Timeline.
Oh, okay. I would have said Sphere, but I would have been wrong.
Yeah, that would work too. I don't think I haven't read Sphere since I was a kid, and I feel like that was in an age where I was willing to DNF a novel if I didn't really get it. So I might have to go
probably
back.
Yeah. The first time I read it, it went over my head. The second time I read it, a little older, I was like, oh, this thing is trippy. That's why I couldn't get it before.
But yeah, Timeline for me is just so much fun, and you have these people going back in time and trying to make as little impact as they can to the past while still knowing what's going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
I like it. Mm-hmm. Shannon, another question for Mr. Ben Pick. I know you have several.
Yeah. Again, you may not answer this if it's spoilery.
Sure.
But are Flints powers, which he calls aspects, are they different from the powers that Derek has?
No, I see it all as the same sort of thing. It's all unlocking these gates inside of each of the individual people, and how they unlock them. It would manifest differently in a different person based on their personality, based on their strengths, based on their weaknesses. So one of the things I'm eventually going to show is people having similar powers that in the end result in slightly different manifestations.
I like that, kind of like a singular source for the magic, and then how everybody interacts with it changes depending on the character.
Yeah, so I don't know if I'll ever actually go into these details, but there are. I've listed out the specific aspects that there are and what those gates would unlock. So there'll be like space, there'll be time, there'll be different qualities associated with them, and then I show and then in my notes I have what this could really lead to, or how Tracy is able to transform various objects and by unlocking the specific gate. So
Margaret just showed up.
Hey, out of our interview. Nice.
What trope would you love to write that you haven't? What trope will you never write?
That's a tough one.
Just say enemies to lovers. Everyone else does.
No, I think that enemies to lovers is actually really interesting, and I am not going to say any more on that.
All right. Yes. Spoilers.
But I'm not opposed to including tropes that, yes, love triangles, because I was watching somebody else. I think it might have been Margaret's Smash or Pass video for science fiction, but most often it's not a love triangle. It's 2 points that are kind of connected, and then the person has an obvious choice, which is the right one. But there's this fake sense of drama that the author insists on including to try and make it seem like there's more going on than there really is. And so, yeah, definitely a love triangle is something I would try and avoid.
I think it was on her romance panel.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because, people are always, Team Jacob, Team Edward, or whatever.
It's obvious.
But it's obvious there's an obvious right choice, or Team
Neither.
PETA versus Team. It's been too long since I read Hunger Games. But yeah, there's an obvious choice, and then the only way that it's not that the main character isn't going to pick the obvious choice is if something really drastic happens, which feels out of character.
Magic realism author. Boricua de pura cepa. Were there any tropes from our panel that you are a no on, Ben?
I don't know what the timeline is, but yeah, definitely a love triangle, which is really just a love V.
Excuse me.
Other geometric shapes are available.
Actually, I think that the one that I brought up that I said that I gave a no to because I said yes to all the tropes on the sci-fi and fantasy panel was one that you did a video about, Ben, which is medieval stasis, where a society goes on for a long time, but they never seem to grow past the medieval stage.
Right. Yeah, or how every fantasy feels the same. That's something I tried to do differently, but again, they weren't really in any one specific time period for too long. So I tried to do really prehistory, and so they didn't really have advanced weaponry. And there was an actual comment in the book about how, what is this metal sword that you're carrying around? Like we don't understand what it is. I hope that's not a spoiler. I'm fairly certain that was.
I can't remember, to be honest.
I don't remember that.
I don't remember that. I think
I don't remember.
Well, then that's a book 2 detail, and it's how these two characters are having conversations like, I don't know what a sword is, or I've never really seen a sword, or I don't know how you made it.
No context for it. Yeah.
So they have no context for it. So that's the difference. I guess it might have been book 2 then. Whatever. Or maybe that might have been scene that I cut. But the point is that I tried to make it so it was in prehistory, where they had limited weapons and they had limited understanding, and then you come to a different place that has evolved well past where they should for that prehistory.
Nice.
Someone's been tinkering with the timeline.
Maybe. There's a lot of different reasons why certain things can happen.
Yeah. Well, we consider this a nice teaser for the next book. That's how I'm looking at it.
When can we pre-order book 2?
Oh, I was just gonna say, like, is there like a title reveal coming? A cover reveal?
There is a title reveal that will be coming. I don't honestly know when that will be. I would love to get my book out by December 10th. I think I can do that. I have one round of editing is going to be finishing up, I think, on Sunday. Then I'm going to send it away next week for another round. And then I should have the final editing, the copy editing, proofreading, and it should be ready to go by. It's going to be very tight deadline. So we'll see what I can do. I might have to upload everything to Ingram Spark, get a book out there to ARCs, and then just have to put in some edits after that.
And you still have ARCs open for people who want to sign up?
I do. Yes. If you are interested in ARCs, just send me an email, writingtowrite@gmail.com. You can ping me on Instagram. You can message me through YouTube. There are all kinds of different ways. So yes, if you are interested in being an ARC beta, please let me know.
Sign me up.
Awesome.
I think I already said sign me up to you, right?
Yeah, I probably did. But
yes.
I'm saying it publicly so I can't back out.
Well, I will make a note of that.
Oh, man.
But yeah, thank you. That's awesome.
So you're still shooting for December, huh? You're only a couple months away. Think you're gonna make it?
We'll see.
I had to backtrack off of December. I was hoping to release in December, but it's just like it's not gonna happen.
I also had to backtrack from December because that was no.
January, February is probably where it's gonna be coming out. January, February.
There we go.
But you know what? December's a hard month to release it. That's
why I want to go for early December.
You're going to get lost in the shuffle.
My book came out, my debut came out in November, and it was, my sales didn't go up until January.
Okay. Well,
so I don't know. It could be different, though, for different genres. I mean, there's different experiences.
Right. That is valuable information. I mean, because I am going to really be pushing to get it out there by December 10th. So if I can if I don't get it out until December 10th at the latest, obviously I will be pushing it back by January. But I really want to get it out that time period because that's when the story mostly takes place. So like
okay.
with going through it largely took place in August to September timeframe, and the next book will be November December timeframe. So.
Yeah, I was hoping for December to capitalize on the whole. It's the holidays; people buy gifts for people and stuff like that. But it's because everybody is thinking that way that everything releases
And the
in
people
December.
who have money are the ones pouring it into ads. All the ads, they go up. The prices go up, and that's what people are being shown are those ads. Yeah, and I didn't have the money to compete with that.
And then you got to imagine that the pricing of the ads and the advertisement probably goes down in January, February.
It does.
So yeah, makes sense.
Well, that's the thing. So for the first book, I didn't do any marketing or advertising until after the first month. So now that and yes, that is my own fault, and yes, I'm scrambling a little bit. So it would actually work out pretty well, where I can get the book out in mid-December, and then wait a month and start ramping up the advertising in January, February timeframe to capitalize on those cheaper prices.
So my question is, what has your marketing strategy consisted of so far, and what are you feeling is working or not working? Or have I just spoiled a running to write video coming up soon?
No. This is why I really am disappointed in Ingrams Spark, because it is very difficult to tie any specific marketing campaign with a specific bump in sales. I can't see when sales went up. I can kind of see my sales rank in Amazon changing, and I don't know if that's because books are being bought or if that's just because there are other books that are coming out, which is also affecting that. So there's a disconnect between. There's just a disconnect that I can't draw sales to my marketing campaign. So I'd like to think that it's working. I don't honestly know, and we'll see. I just now put out a Facebook ad that I set to go up, I think, last week, and that's going to go through the month of October. I don't really have too many other marketing campaigns. I did a bunch of them in mid-September through the end of it. So now, if sales go up in October, I can largely attribute that to Facebook. But again, it's all just a question mark, and I think I need to wait basically 60 days between when I do something to when I can see the sales increase. But again, it's only the number of books sold across the month, so I don't really have good metrics or good breakdowns. And
all the podcasts I listen to and people who talk about the different platforms, Ingram Spark is not alone in that. Amazon is kind of the outlier that you can see almost real sales, real day to day. All the other ones, you don't see it until a month or more in advance or past it.
Right, but even so, can you see the day that people bought a specific book, or is it just here's your sales over the course of September?
So in Amazon,
breaks it down day by day.
By day, but from the other platforms, which I haven't used them, so I'm just going off of what I've heard other authors say, that Draft to Digital, Smashwords, which they're now the same. I mean, they're the same. You get a report, and it's after the sales have already happened, and it's not day by day.
Yeah. So I just got my sales report from Ingram Spark, and it was the number of sales in the month. So it was broken down based on who they bought it. So I have Amazon, I have Kobo, and I have Libri, and that's just the number of sales. It says the pay period between September 1st and September 30th. But again, I never received anything in August, and I know that there were definitely digital sales in the month of August. So I have no idea how this correlates, if this is just a month delay or where that goes.
It's a real shame you have that kind of lag in and opacity in the data, because you could really do with that.
Oh, absolutely.
I've heard this from so many self-published authors at this point, that one of the ideas my producers and I are kicking around is the possibility of releasing our digital copies and any audiobooks we may make as an app that you would download directly from us onto your device. And from that app, do the digital version, do the audiobook, jump back and forth between the two. And hopefully it would make it a lot easier for us to track our own sales and not have to rely on a third party. Mm-hmm. Then again, we would be completely alone. We'd be an island, advertise. It has its pros and cons. So just throwing that out there.
one idea that Richard actually mentioned to me is to use Ingram Spark for the physical copies, in which case they do a pretty good job for that because they're the ones who are producing those books, and it's relatively easy to track. And then to manually upload into Amazon separately from Ingram.
Yeah,
I would.
My advice to you, Ben, is to use Ingram Spark for everything else apart from Amazon. So upload your paperback to Amazon and your Kindle book to Amazon and let Ingram do everything else, because there was problems with getting hold of this through the Ingram Spark Amazon meshing or lack thereof. So from authors that I've heard of, like Dan Hook, I love Dan, he had a lot of problems on his release date because Ingram Spark let him down at the last minute. I mean, this took about 5 days to arrive and I pre-ordered it. So I was like, where is it? I want it now. Where is it? Give me the book now. I'm getting annoyed. But it turned out it was worth the wait. But I think it might be easier on your customers to perhaps look at using Ingram for every other storefront and just dealing with Amazon. They can print your paperback on Amazon. They can do your Kindle and let Ingram do every other storefront. Does that make any sense to you?
Kind of, yeah.
I think if you're using your own ISBN, it doesn't really matter if Amazon prints some of these or Ingram prints some of these, because you can use the same ISBN.
Right.
This is not a book design / sales video, but I'm happy to chat to you about this.
Don't you actually keep more of your sales if you do it direct to Amazon, because you're going through an aggregator basically with
That's true, and they change the prices as and when.
Yeah.
So I know when I was uploading, because I'm getting ready to go wide next year, when I was uploading my paperback to Ingram, I had to put it much higher, and I had to put it higher than what's on Amazon. And I was like, I don't want too much of a difference, so I put it a little bit higher. But now what I'm making on my paperback is much smaller than what I would make on Amazon. So if you've already got a set price for your paperback through Ingram, you put the same price on Amazon, you're going to get more of that royalty.
I'll figure that out then.
Makes sense.
I mean, I think metrics than the.
Anybody know the answers to RC Scott's question here? How much does it cost to advertise in the social media sewers?
It depends on the reach you want to get. I mean, I don't know what Ben's budget is for his ads, so
I set a $5 limit for Facebook ads.
Is that a day?
Yeah.
I set a $5 limit for my Amazon ads for the ones I'm running, so that's each one, and I have 3 now that I'm running.
Did you say $75 a day?
$5 a day.
Okay. I was like, wow.
But it doesn't ever get that. I mean, I might get a couple cents here and there throughout the week, because I have my budget set, I think, at 35 cents for ad.
Yep.
Makes sense. I'm on a broke Southside scrub budget.
This book is worth saving up for.
I mean, honestly, you all know me, so you can, if you really want to, you can just reach out, and I will gladly send you a ebook or whatever. So there's that.
Is your ad on Facebook? Is it a video ad or is it just like a graphic ad? Yay!
It's the fantastic teaser trailer that Mr. Adrian made for me.
Yeah, cool. Everyone's seeing your work, Adrian.
That's awesome, man. That's why I made it. Shannon, any more questions for Mr. Ben Pick before we start wrapping it up today?
Will Derek share more of his powers?
Maybe not.
See, I knew that was going to be a spoiler. You weren't going to tell us.
We have to read to find out.
Whatever, it's a spoiler. But I will say one of my influences. Let me see if I can pull this out. There we go. Item. It's a kid's book. Read it as a kid. It's really good. But there's one of the concepts in there of they get these weird pages torn out that have a whole bunch of like mysteries on them, and one of them is let me see if I can find it. That's a bad example. Basically, there's one thing where it is 111 is greater than 1 + 1 + 1. And that's a really big theme because it is showing that the team, when they work together, they can do more than each person working separate. So that was one of the things that you brought up of why they would want to share their powers. and it makes sense where they can do more by. Yes, the individual gets weaker, but collectively they can get stronger. Here we go.
Okay.
So
That'll be cool to see
I'm
that.
trying to
Ben.
figure out how that works on a math level. 1 +
Here we
1 + 1 is greater than 111.
Math.
So you have these little fake pages in there with a bunch of random things in there that are hints at what may have already happened, hints of what's to come, and so.
You're gonna draw something like that for your next book?
No, absolutely not. I'm not an artist.
Ben, do you have
thing that
eyes in the back of your head? How are you doing this? You're just like
Dude, I got my
looking.
He's memorized the layout of that bookshelf.
See it in his camera.
He's like, well, no, puts it back, grabs the next one. He doesn't even look at him. He just grabs them.
He's looking in the camera though. He can see it behind him.
No, but it's 6 books all in a row, so I just have to grab one of them. It doesn't matter which one.
So if we make a request for a book, can you pick it out without looking at it?
Probably not. I can tell you the Lord of the Rings are over here. I can tell you Makimia's over here. Timeline's somewhere over here.
Who isn't going to get their own book?
Spoilers.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Read on.
I will say that I can say this. I want to move further from the characters that we started with. So as the series goes on, I want to make Derek less of the focal character because I think that the people that are surrounding him are much more interesting. So like I really do enjoy writing Tracy. I really do enjoy writing Rachel chapters. And
I want to see some John chapters.
That might be nice.
He's going to be an interesting. He's going to be an interesting antagonist going forward.
Shannon, Richard, any last questions for Mr. Ben Pick today? Anything we haven't gotten to yet?
My question is, Ben, how do we be as awesome as you are?
Thank you, Richard.
That wasn't an answer.
I was just going to say it wasn't an answer.
I'm volunteering to beta read an arc.
Nice.
Or by signing up for your newsletter. Hold up your.
Oh.
There we go. Sign up for your newsletter.
And sign up for Ben's newsletter.
Yeah.
Which is also very good.
Shannon's and mine's.
Everyone's newsletter, yes.
Newsletters everywhere. Great question, Richard.
You're welcome, RC Scott.
All right, guys, we're going to take a quick sidebar here for the moment of truth. Who has won the poll for the next book we'll be reading?
They literally won a poll.
Let's find out. It was a really close, tight race for a while, and then McMurdo Rift kind of ran away with it. I don't know what happened, but it just exploded.
Did anyone tell Martin he could only vote for himself once?
Technically, that rule is not hard and fast. You can vote multiple times. I'm not saying anyone did, but
so for the next book, y'all tell me who I should, who you want to go for, and I'm gonna put that up first.
The important thing is,
but I don't know exactly. Yeah, I don't know exactly where it is back
here. He's gonna. I thought he was just. I thought you were just gonna pull it out.
It's up there.
Nice.
It's up there.
I prepared in advance. I am just thrilled that another Brit is gonna be on the Tuba Book Club.
And you realize, though, we're like dominant male authors on this show. We've only had one female.
We've only had one female so far.
Oh, yeah. I blame you guys.
I mean,
it wasn't my fault.
The people vote. I did. What are you gonna do?
Well, your audience must be male. No, I'm just kidding.
Actually, my metrics say that 65% of my audience are female. The majority are female. Yeah. It's the hair.
It is. It's your sponsorships by Pantene shampoo, isn't it?
I need something. Yeah, I gotta get a sponsor up in here.
I am looking
my
forward
hair
very
blowing
much-
in the wind. I'm doing the work.
I'm looking forward very much to reading this book again and chatting about it with you all.
I look forward to it too, especially with the sequel coming out soon. It's gonna be fun.
When's our first episode for it?
So 2 weeks from today, let me pull up
Nice.
my calendar here. 2 weeks from today is October 18th. We'll be doing the first half of the book on that day. I believe there's something like 35 chapters, something like that. I'll get the exact numbers and send it to you guys in the
29,
group chat.
31.
So the first half on October 18th, the second half on November 1st, and our interview with the two co-authors would be on November 15th.
The 15th, I won't be here.
Oh, well then be sure to send me your questions ahead of time, and I'll be sure to ask them on your behalf.
So I have to cause twice as much chaos then on that stream if Shannon's not going to be here to make me behave.
I'm going to be outnumbered, Shannon. You're going to leave me hanging because I'm going to have 3 Brits in here telling me.
We're going
PK conference.
Oh,
to have you driving on the
priorities.
left, Adrian.
Can we
How accidents
push
happen.
it back a week or bump it up a week?
I'll see. I'll talk to them. We haven't talked to Malcolm Bradley yet about his availability. So if we can move it up a week, I'd be okay with that. I'll do that.
So
Yeah, I'll let you guys know. Right on. Mr. Ben Pick, thank you. Oh, Richard clarifies it's 32 chapters. Thank you.
You're
So
welcome.
16. What is that? 16 and 16? Yeah, 16 and 16.
Yes,
You
that's
can
what
do
half is.
math.
Democracy. Ben, thank you so very much for writing such a badass, awesome book. Thank you so very much for being here with us today. Please take the floor. Let the people know what you got coming up next on your channel, and what you want them to do. Whoop! I goofed up. Everybody, stop laughing at me.
Hey, I'm Ben Pick. I do a YouTube channel called Running to Write, Monday nights, 7 p.m. Eastern Time. Questionable writing advice through running metaphors. I'm also on the Self-Publishing Tips and Tricks podcast with Shannon and Morgan, and our next interview will be on the 15th, I believe. Yeah, that sounds right. And my next video with the scripting the book will be October 30th. That's Coraline, so that'll be a fun Halloween-y theme. If everything goes right and I get my schedule set, I will have a book for book 2 in the series out by December 10th. So stay tuned. Hopefully it works. If not, like we said, January, February look pretty nice. Lastly, Worldwide Write-a-thon, October 22nd, 3 to 5:30 a.m. Make that what you will. I would love to have you join in on the productivity sprints. You can see how well I'll be doing. I probably will need to be editing during that time. I think that might be one of my really short breakdowns where I have to do a fast turnaround. But if not, I would love to sit there and talk about book 3 and writing it. So you can find me on all those places.
It's like 2:00 in the morning for me.
I'll
Sleep is
probably
overrated.
be there. Yeah, I'll probably be there. I'm usually up overnight.
All these
feeling
are
like-
doing it like 1 a.m. or something, right?
I'm feeling like I should be there, so we shall see.
And I'm doing it the very next day. I thought it was after you, but I am in the time slot after you, but on the next day.
Nice.
Which is much better.
Richard, your turn to say goodbye to everybody. By the way, did you get a new camera? Because your what's it called? Your video feed is very crisp and clear, and
And you still got those bars on the side.
Can't get rid of them.
Yeah,
Can't get rid of them.
you can.
I am
though.
in prison. I am in camera prison because I'm surrounded by bars. I shall say goodbye to myself. Hello, goodbye. I'm Richard Holliday. I'm the author of Nightmare Tonight and new book coming out Q1 2023. If you want to find out all about that, then you know what to do. You need to subscribe to my newsletter. If you don't do it, it's just rude.
Richard, you have a newsletter?
Is this the first you've heard of it, Adrian?
Definitely not. Shannon, you're up last. Here we go. Take the floor.
Thank you, everybody, for coming. We had a great time. Grab your copy of Falling Through if you can. And I can't wait to do this again for the next McMurdo Rift.
McMurdo Rift is coming up next, people. I have been your host with the most, Adrian Santiago. My book comes out whenever I freaking finish it. Who knows? And keep coming back to the channel. We got Typewriters Podcast on Thursday with Natalie Pinter from this week's live stream Sunday. And then we've got live stream Sunday again on Sunday, every Sunday, 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. I'll see you guys all there. I'm very excited for the rest of this season. Thank you very much. Everybody wave. Chat, thank you all for being here and participating. And Write On Writers, we out.